welcome everyone to the 28th session of Coffee with Ashish. And today we have a special guest with us, Suraj Nair from Travel Spends. And before we get into conversation with him, as always, from a context perspective, we have had on our show in the last 27 sessions people from all different points of view, different travel intermediaries, different product owners. But you would essentially agree with me that travel inherently is a very transactional business. Whether you are, booking a travel or you are consuming it, or even from a finance perspective, you will see that there is a lot of data which is generated in any customer journey, whether it's a retail customer or whether it's a corporate customer. And I think there is a lot of focus in the last decade or so on churning this data, on trying to make sense of this data to generate personalization, to do cost optimizations for corporates, and at large to sort of make sense of this data and try to derive certain patterns or trends out of it to figure out how to best optimize targeting a customer, cross selling and upselling them, and also at large from a corporate perspective do a audit of sorts to make sense of this entire data which is generated in the process. And there have been a dearth of startups and tech companies that entered this space in the last decade or so, using big data, AI, and all these fancy words which we hear now, and they try to do some of those things. And as always, I have a small cartoon to capture this trend which happened, and this is my favorite from Dilbert, where basically the boss is asking, or the consultant is being got on board to try to make some sense of database, and he says, I'm not able to make a sense, the data is wrong, and then he gives an alternative, and then he says, at best can you make an average of it to use it, and then he says, I can also multiply it if you want, but that won't give you any result. So, and on the right, if you see, and that's something which I've been seeing in a lot of conversations in boardroom discussions, where you have a data representation and you actually are trying to scout for a model or a data scientist to help explain it, and not the other way around. So I think these are some of the trends. But on a more serious note, I think there are at max 4 or 5 good companies, stable companies that have tried to address this problem at large. And I think one of the companies is we are lucky to have them with us today on our show, which is Travel Spends. Now Travel Spends, as I was telling you, uh, they are into consulting, they are into analytics, they are into technology, and they try to look at this problem from all these perspectives. So it's not only the tech side of it, but they also do advisory to organizations to dig the traveler behavior, to understand patterns in an organization in terms of what are the spend analytics. They also try to optimize cost using a lot of business process reengineering, using toponomics, trying to derive hidden insights from traveler's journey. And Travel Spends claim to have analyzed more than 1 million trips with 15 million plus dollar worth of cost optimization, which they have done in across the world in 10 countries. And they offer both B2B and B2E services, and they do real-time travel analytics, they do fare audits on different products, air, hotel. They also do for large Fortune 500 companies, they do spend management, they do controllable P&L analysis for those companies, and they have done delivered cost optimization of over $25 million for some of these companies using their proprietary platform of Triponomics. And they also have a suite of products in their portfolio like Twinect, which helps airlines and airports to sort of use social media to engage with their customers. They have a product called My Visa Track, which supports travel trade to digitize visa processing. We all know visa is always for me at least, I know personally, visa is always a complicated process to get done. They also have a trip authorization tool for acquiring trip business approvals for seamless experience. So we got this host of tools and consulting and analytics platform. So I think they're very well positioned to solve this problem of data analytics for our travel trade. And the guy at the helm of affairs for Travel Spend is Suraj Nair. Prior to his journey with TravelSpan, he was the co-head of corporate travel business at Thomas Cook, and he was responsible for leading the business and doing business transformation alongside his role at Thomas Cook. And he has also worked in the T&E space with large global giants like American Express. He has also managed national level roles with Carlson Wagonlit, Travel, Interglobe, and a bunch of other large companies, which we have had the privilege to have on our show as well. And at large, from an industry perspective, he's a thought leader. He's an industry shaper. He speaks regularly at various events and conferences on travel, and he has won various awards and accolades in the travel industry. So with this, a very warm welcome to you, Suraj, to our show. We are really honored to have you with us today. And with this, I'm going to hand it over to Ashish to have a conversation with you while I sit back and enjoy my coffee.
Thank you, Karthik. Thank you for that wonderful introduction. Really appreciate it.
Suraj, how's your coffee?
Well, Ashish, I'm having South Indian filter coffee,
Wow.
and it can be as good as it gets.
Wow. So let's filter through all this data business, huh?
Sure.
It's leaving me overawed, and I'm sure it's leaving some of our viewers also overawed.
Sure.
Let's just cut to the chase. What is the value you deliver, you as in your organization, and to
Sure.
who and how? Just tell us in simple terms.
Sure, Ashish. Firstly, thank you for having me on your show. I think it's a great initiative that you have started in the industry as we kind of battle times that we've never seen in our lives. Okay, so congratulations on that. To kind of give you a brief on travel spends and the kind of work that we do, we are a travel cost optimization company. We use data, we kind of mine data, and we are able to project trends based on data. So we pride ourselves in being a travel consulting, technology, and audit company. When we say audit, the term is synonymous with analytics, and we do real-time analytics, which means that as a ticket or a hotel is getting booked, we seamlessly work at the back end to be able to validate certain rules and parameters that the enterprise has as a part of their travel policy, and then be able to give recommendations back to travel companies who are their fulfillment partners to be able to kind of use that data in a meaningful format and ensure that they do realized savings versus actually reporting missed savings, right? So real-time validation is what our key strength is. And as Karthik mentioned, we have a product called Tripnomics. Tripnomics means the economics of a trip. And we are able to use technology and mind to be able to drive that value for our customers. So travel spends plays the space of being an extended arm or bandwidth of an enterprise. We work with the travel ecosystem. We work with travel management companies because we get the feed from the travel management companies. We strengthen their value proposition in the marketplace because every time they're delivering savings to the enterprise, their lock-in with the customer is going up. And last but not the least, this whole concept of travel spends was born out of a belief where Girish and me, the co-founders, sat one day and we thought, saying that the corporate spends huge amounts of money. They have no visibility to what's happening on their contracted rates, contracted airline fares. Can we bring that visibility to them? Can we show them that whatever is the rule engine that you define, within that rule engine, you're getting the best in class in terms of visibility to fares, hotel rates, anything which is online where there is a marketplace. And God has been kind to us that over the journey that we've had of around 6 years, we have serviced a large amount of Fortune 500 companies. We've been able to meet with their GDPR requirements that startups need to kind of meet up with. We are on the panel of a large amount of these customers who have derived value by associating themselves with us. And in the process, we have kind of created a new segment in the travel space, which requires and which is very, very valuable in today's time and age. And I will go into it in some moment in time as to why that's going to be valuable. So we all know of Philip Kotler's 4P model, right? So price is an important derivative in the 4P model. You have promotion, place, and the product itself. But the product's value, as you call it, is being derived from the price. And in travel, we know that it is the emotional quotient of travel that is very, very important, whether it's a business traveler or a leisure traveler.
Right.
The traveler believes that he's getting value from the travel intermediary or supplier when he's buying travel. And if that belief is broken because he finds a cheaper fare, a better hotel rate outside, then the trust element of the transaction goes away. And if you do not have trust in that transaction, then you don't find repeat business, whether it is an enterprise or whether it's a leisure travel. So from a standpoint of travel, it is very important that price transparency comes to the fore. And price transparency is not easy to achieve in travel because airfares and hotel rates are both opaque. Right? If you have hotel rates and airfares which are opaque, it is important for a player to bring that visibility to the enterprise.
Right.
And that is the role that we kind of play as an organization. We have the enterprise at the heart of our offerings, and we kind of work with the travel ecosystem to deliver that value to the enterprise.
Right. So I'll take you on your word transparency, because travel industry and the suppliers by nature and by DNA have lived in a very opaque world all their lives. And I think opaqueness is something which we draw strength from. So I hold you there on one perspective. And second perspective, I hold you on the enterprise, where when you say cost cutting, obviously post-COVID now, which assumes more significance, to listeners, it would simply mean make less number of trips, or make sure that the cars are pooled in. If two people are arriving at the same time, make sure you share a common car. So these are just general misgivings which we have when we say, look at cost cutting where enterprises are concerned. Or the simple way is, look, a TMC or a smaller or large, we'll come back later on that question. I have something to talk to you on that. Would say, look, it doesn't make a difference. If you're buying a fare for 4,000, which is the cheapest, take it. As long as I'm protected with my management fee on top of it, I'm fine. If you want to cut that also further, that's a separate matter altogether. Sure. So the question here is, bottom line, is that how does it assume significance post-COVID in simple terms for both the supplier and for the corporate? So it's a win-win for both. Nobody sort of distrusts. You use the word distrust also somewhere.
Correct. I think the COVID has had a cataclysmic effect on travel, right? We all accept that. Why I say cataclysmic is, the word itself is used in the context of an upheaval which is violent, right? It has taken away lives. On one side, we have the uncertainty of whether we will skip the lottery when it comes to COVID, right? Right. Because it is like a lottery. It picks up somebody overnight and we're still figuring out how does it pick, what are the parameters, and there is a whole science that's going behind it. However, the life of a travel personnel, as you call it, or a person who's in the travel ecosystem is not very dissimilar to what COVID is doing, right? Because there is a constant sword hanging of a job cut, right? You don't know if your organization will lay you off. There are salary cuts already announced. So the person in the travel industry is fighting two battles, as I see it, and he has to win both battles. Okay, because he has to win the battle for livelihood and he has to win the battle for COVID, and that's the socio-economic impact of what this pandemic has caused. When I come down to how will it change things, right? So we all know that there is a complete breakdown of demand and supply, right? So the entire data that was built around a balanced ecosystem of demand and supply is now under the cloud. Yeah. That data has little or no significance because the new demand and supply mechanism will determine prices. And as the new demand and supply mechanism determines prices, there is going to be a big window of uncertainty where fares will seesaw, hotel rates will seesaw, because even the suppliers are trying to find the right discovery point at which they can balance their inventory and maximize their yield. And in this imbalance lies the value that an organization like TravelSpence can bring to the table, because that is where validation becomes important. Unless you validate what is available at that point of sale and you see that your options which you have contracted have all been on the table, you can't ever offer it to leisure customers or to enterprise customers. Because in leisure also, there is a very, very strong bonding to what we talk in corporate, right? You have the GIT travel, which is the group travel, where leisure works in a different mode. But a large component of FIT travel, which is individual travel, where people are assisted with bookings, rates, packaging, that all works on the similar premise as buying a retail travel out in the marketplace. So a hotel rate is determined by that, a airline rate is determined by that, and stuff like that. So there's a very strong correlation that is at play. Now, the second part which I want to kind of bring in here is that the ROI on programs. Now, we've heard multiple webinars where we've had enterprises come and talk saying that we're going to partner with our suppliers, right? It is not going to happen, right? It is not going to happen when the CEO of that organization says, I want you to control costs. Now, as you said, Ashish, either you can cut the trips or you can optimize the trips. So when you want to optimize the trips, you need to work with your travel partners to be able to look at still price as one of the key parameters, because you have chosen the product. When I say I'm going to work with a set of contracted airlines or hotels, I've chosen the product. Now what matters is the price at which that product is offered, right? And that actually will be the determinant of the future where you can optimize your costs. And we have seen that shared economy players are going to have a really tough time going forward. So you are going to have to depend on your primary suppliers, whether it's car rentals, whether it is transportation, whether it is hotels, because your OYOs and Airbnbs are completely under the cloud for the next 12 to 18 months, if not more, right? So your shared economy players are not going to be able to get enterprise grade business. And thirdly, the value addition that you can bring to the table in terms of an enterprise program or a leisure program is that when we did a corporate travel benchmarking study in 2020, when we did this in December, January, just before the pandemic actually broke out, the lounge access, Wi-Fi, comforts around what value hotels can add were the key areas which travelers thought were important. And that has now been replaced by health and hygiene, safety, duty of care. So the entire landscape has overnight transformed in terms of the want and need of the enterprise traveler or a leisure traveler, right? It is on those lines that we feel that we need to innovate ourselves, adapt, and bring in new products. So we are working with some companies in the US where we can bring a pandemic product to the marketplace, which will cover evacuation, which will cover duty of care, which we can redistribute to enterprises, leisure travelers, right? And that is the need of the hour, because as we evolve, there is a need that supersedes some other need. There is work that we are doing with organizations where we are helping charters being managed, which is kind of taking people into hubs which are operational currently, and that is we've got some real traction going on that activity. We are upgrading our own teams in terms of how they can face up to the future in terms of building their knowledge levels. We get key industry speakers on to talk to them one-on-one in terms of how and what is shaping payment space, what is shaping the online space, and what is the kind of work that's happening in the travel and expense space, right? So that's the difference that I find that is going to kind of happen in a pre-COVID and a post-COVID world. So there are going to be three key trends that I feel will happen. One is technology and digital fulfillment will gain importance. The second part that I feel is that value buying is going to continue to grow in importance, which means reshopping tools will become more and more critical for a travel company or for enterprises, because that's the discovery point of price is important. And thirdly, travel will continue to remain personal, but travel fulfillment will become impersonal, which means touchless will gain importance. Travel fulfillment, any person who said that I know travel fulfillment has no value in a post-COVID world, because technology is going to take away your job. So you need to reskill, and you need to kind of get into a mode where your value is not going to come from your ability to fulfill, but your value is going to come from the ability to understand a traveler needs and then give him a solution.
Right. So if I get a sense of the post-COVID ecosystem of distribution of corporate travel, I'm getting a feeling with technology being, of course, a great leveler. And of course, the big versus small debate, which continues for eternity, with everything being leveled to the ground. I think distribution of a smaller travel management companies, medium-sized travel companies, if they were to equip themselves in a manner they should be and realign the models in the manner it should be, I see them playing an equivalent, if not a stronger role than the so-called big branded multinational travel corporate running. I mean, do you see that happening? Because technology is a great leveler to everybody.
Yeah, so Ashish, that's a great question. Now, the way I look at it is that the big 7 or 8 travel companies, you could kind of put them into 2 boxes. One is the Indian homegrown multinationals, as you call it, and the other one are the global players who have a presence in India. Right now, unfortunately for us, these companies have not invested in technology. To be fair, they have not built their own technology. They have chosen to work with some consolidator who built technology and who got eventually consummated in a deal. And now, all of them are figuring out how to kind of what will be their technology strategy, how will they kind of move forward, the kind of what do I say, the opportunity that they lost of creating an OPEX model on software versus a CAPEX model on software versus an OPEX which they opted for is kind of today coming back to bite them. A lot of these large companies, right? They don't have technology that they can customize. Any customization is so heavily charged that they are not able to navigate. Right. So I feel that one of the need of the hour which leaders in these PMCs will have to take is to build technology, which is their proprietary technology, kind of adapt it to a large market like India. India is not a small market by any means, right? Growing at a rate where it's likely to be the third largest business travel market behind China and the US. So if you're working and operating in that market, I think the investments in technology have to come in, number one. Number two, I feel that some of the challenges that they've had, which is that they have not adapted at a pace where their full-time employees or their implant model has actually kind of ensured that they have a large workforce. And now with touchless and contactless and auto fulfillment, we are talking about a good downsizing in some of those areas. Because we have to understand that the organized players contribute to about 30-32% of the business travel market in India. The balance comes from the smaller players, right? Which we call as SMEs and we call as unorganized, or we call regional players. They kind of contribute a lot to this segment. And I heard on one of your shows where the GDS was talking of a 25-28% share. Now that is based on segments, obviously, and on an average, a booking in India creates about 3 segments, right? You have the one-stop flight and you have the 2-stop flight, or you have and that's actually how you compute the segments. Now, so I personally believe that the online adoption should increase, and if the online adoption has to increase significantly, then the arbitrage between your offline price and online price should actually be high. Only then there is an incentive for an enterprise to kind of go online. Otherwise, the enterprise believes that we can have a whole body shop of people sitting there and doing work for us. And the current pandemic is actually going to accelerate that process, because you are seeing that a lot of travel companies are under pressure to manage their costs, right? And the smaller companies, on the other hand, may be more agile, may be more flexible, but they also haven't made their investments into technology, right? So what they need is not maybe legacy systems. They need smart plug and play systems, right? Where they could use data meaningfully. They could plug into some amount of legacy APIs that are produced by the GDSs and stuff like that. And they could kind of easily use Navitaire using a Travel Fusion or something like that and be able to give a solution out in the marketplace. So I find that the value proposition that the big companies brought to the table, whether it is client management, whether it is network, all that is today under pressure because they're not able to invest back into the business. And that is critical and key to the fact of how the ecosystem will shape up. But both will coexist, because for the benefit and the health of the ecosystem, it is important that you have large players and you have small players, and that's going to continue to happen.
Right. But Suraj, lastly, sitting where I sit, I see a huge seismic fault line in the corporate travel world. I see 32%, as you're saying, the organized players holding it. And these 32% of volumes are riding perhaps more than majority, probably 80% on somebody else's platform with no IP intellectual property rights on it, which could be plugged out tomorrow morning if they have to. If they went down under because of COVID, so would be the operating platforms of these 32% players. Then you have the balance players, which we call SMEs, who are fighting for survival, haven't invested over the years on technology, right? And whatever you're saying that they need to do, that is not something you can do tomorrow morning, right? There is a long pipeline to it. So as I see it, 2 thoughts come to me, and for your concluding remarks on that. Number one, I think there is a great fault line the corporate travel world corporate travel especially, has been riding on. I'm not talking so much about retail, because retail is still in a different perspective, which India as a country which needs to grapple with post-COVID. The second part I'm making is that here's an opportunity for somebody to come out of India and actually to become another Carlson Wagonly or American Express outside the country. What the Prime Minister has been talking about, India going global, right? Because to me, if they're going to be using homegrown systems, then what value am I perceiving? Lastly, of course, to add to all this confusion, is a whole field known as public sector undertaking, the PSU travel. Today, we know, and you know, there's a huge amount of public sector which is done by traditional companies like Baman Lorry or Ashok Travel and Tours, which is not opened up. And I have full belief in my own self that a time will come when India will open that up. Because as they're opening up everything, did you even imagine private trains to be running on the same tracks in the railways? So I don't see why Oil India or Steel Authority of India should not be traveling with, you know, private companies. That's another mandate, that they may be mandated to fly national carrier for protecting the national carrier. So in this overall scenario, I am seeing a great opportunity, but I'm also seeing a great problem, at least in the next 2 years, if not more. So how do you summarize this whole thinking I'm getting?
Sure, Ashish. So first, let me first address the first part of what you asked, right?
And just to add one more confusion, then, and I feel a lack of leadership across the industry, because obviously somewhere you expect, like NASSCOM did for the software industry, the travel associations should have played a role to guide and mentor this unauthorized or unregulated industry, but it hasn't happened either. So what do you say?
Sure. So I think there are three parts of the question that you asked me, and let me address the first part first. So I find this moment as the Noah's Ark moment. Okay, so when Noah, actually, when the world was getting flooded, Noah put some species on the ship and actually kind of sailed out to kind of recreate a new world, right? So I think the role of leaders today is to kind of protect, conserve, and grow from there, right? So they need to protect, they need to conserve their people, because they build organizations on people. We pride ourselves in being a people organization. We have a great team who puts in, the best effort. We combine mind and technology to offer a solution to the marketplace, right? So I feel that leaders have a huge role, because all of the people in your organization do not know how to reskill. I hear people saying you should reskill, you should kind of do this, you should do that. No, but somebody needs to show them a path, right? So we run a program called as Reflections, where we have people coming in and talk to us. And that's one way that we kind of orient them on new things in life, right? We get them to new challenges. So that's one part of it. Secondly, you are right in saying that some of the organizations like IATA have lost its way in terms of innovation, right? I think those bodies have become now advisory in nature. They need to become action bodies. They should be able to influence airlines, hotels, governments to be able to drive the change, right? And we cannot have, and it's basically reflective of the overall problem. You know, even organizations like WHO are floundering if you look at the way some of the advisories are coming out on travel, right? So I think overall there is a need for that bit to get fixed. The frameworks need to be revisited. The objectives and scope needs to be revisited. And I think people like us need to contribute with positive kind of contributions back to these bodies, which can help them fight the battle to kind of take the turf to the next level, right? Travel as an industry in India needs to kind of completely reorganize and reinvent. I think some of the people who have lived their roles should move on. Fresh blood should come and take on those roles and be able to kind of drive some decision making which can impact with the government. I think Prime Minister Modi, I'm a big fan of the fact that he's brought in transparency in the bidding process, whether it's the coal bidding process or any other government contract. There has been a transparency that's been brought in, right? To that fact, I feel the public sector units, the biggest malaise that they have, or the challenge that they have is, one, they are not transparent. Two, their payment terms really cannot support a private enterprise. And three, their purchase order and processes are not up to the mark. So structural reforms and policy changes are required at PSUs for them to become viable for businesses to operate with them. Two, you can differentiate between core areas like defense, aerospace, where the government has strategic interests, which should not be dealt with a non-Indian supplier.
Yeah, sure.
Like globally, we should protect that within our systems. Data should be protected within the country, and that data should not flow out under any circumstance to any other third party, right? And the last but least, which is important from this thing, is that we are seeing that the entire model is going through a transformational shift. Like domestically, low cost carriers have bigger share than GDS carriers. You know, you are seeing NDC challenge GDS, and the entire ecosystem is in a bit of a turmoil. And people who can take advantage of this turmoil, can make sense out of it, can actually structure and a value proposition that is relevant in today's times. Right. So, for example, data is available on both sides of the table, Ashish. It's available in the social media space, stories, news items, and then your personal preferences where people are posting. Right. How do you consume both these data points to make sense of traveler preferences? That will shape of how personal you can get travel with impersonal touch in terms of fulfillment.
Thank you, Suraj. And I think we will wrap this here, but it's a conversation I'm looking forward to having with you in greater detail, maybe face to face at some stage, because I certainly see that people who have leadership positions in the industry getting together to actually transfer that knowledge across the country.
Sure.
And thank you again once more for being here with us.
So,
we continue.
Yes. Thank you, Ashish. Thank you, Karthik. I think it's a great initiative. Keep it going. Thank you. Have a good evening. Cheers.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.